Hey everybody, it's Kurt and this is the Kurt Locker. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing an initial impressions review on the RitFit PLC01. The RitFit PLC01 is a prone leg curl leg extension combination machine. Now I can't speak for all of you, but for me, this is one of the pieces of equipment I miss the most about being in a commercial gym. When you're in a commercial gym, you typically have a selectorized, really heavy-duty machine. It's probably from somebody like Hammer Strength or Life Fitness or some other huge brand. And when you move into a home gym, blasting your quads with some leg extensions and really hitting your hamstrings hard with some leg curls is something that, for me, I just miss the most. As a result of that, as you start to build out your home gym, you might start to try to fill that gap, fill that void, that vacuum with something that can give you the same type of experience. That's where something like the RitFit PLC01 might come into play. The intent of my review today is to give you guys my initial impressions of how this piece of equipment has done in the 4 weeks that it's been in my gym. The first thing I want to talk about was my initial impressions with this, which includes how it was shipped. It showed up in one large box, something that my UPS driver was a little bit less than enthused about. And in reality, the setup on it was fairly simple. Inside the box, every single individual unit was broken down into its smallest part. Some of the stuff was held together. So for instance, all the bolt setups on the hinges, all the pop pins, they were where they were supposed to go. But other than that, everything was kind of individually packaged and was wrapped in plastic as well as bubble wrap. The packaging was mostly undamaged, but it was just kind of a pain in the butt. It was such a big box, no built-in handles. That doesn't really matter all that much as far as the functionality of the equipment, but it's a part of the experience, so there it is. All in all, using my own tools and not the tools that came with it, it took me about 30 minutes from unpackaging to testing out the very first few repetitions, which included dialing in some certain parts of that. Now, whether or not that was because I'm great at putting together equipment or maybe because I use UXO supplements, which you should check out by either clicking on the card or going to the link down below, I'm gonna leave that up to you. But when you are doing both videos as well as assemblies, having yourself a little bit of aquaspike keeps the sodium up and keeps you energized. As far as material, RitFit has kind of garnered a certain reputation. For instance, we expect to see 2x2 inch thin gauge material for most of the frame, which we do see here. We tend to see the selection of cheaper parts. We tend to see kind of, I wouldn't call them shortcuts, but the RitFit design where it's like, yes, it's just tubes going up and they work, but they're never really all that fantastic. Generally what you're gonna see is just a priority of selection towards inexpensive pieces to make the end unit cheaper for the consumer, you and me. With all that being said, I got exactly what I thought. I was both correct and incorrect at the same time. As I stated, it does have a lot of 2x2 thin gauge material. However, what I'll say is that some of the design features of this piece are actually pretty awesome. So first off, for something that I found to be incredibly lacking is actually the seat pad design. The seat is designed in such a way that you can have like a straight up seat so that when you sit on it, you can do a leg extension and your back is supported, or you can pull this pop pin and there's like one that's all the way laid down flat for doing prone leg curls and the other one that's kind of halfway in between. My biggest issue with this is a couple things. One, when it's all the way down in the prone leg curl configuration, you have this giant gap of about 3 to 4 inches. That's just exposed space. Now your body lays across this, you don't tend to really notice it. However, it is one of those things that I think we've just kind of come to expect in the home gym community to be a little bit better designed. The other part I don't like is when you have the seat all the way up, unless you are a very small person, your legs tend to get pushed all the way off the side to where your knee no longer lines up with this bolt, which is where the axis of rotation is for the leg extension movement. Additionally, what I don't like about that is when you are in the leg extension with the backrest up, it pushes your legs off of the edge of the pad, and the underside of your leg, where it would normally sit, ends up being about 3 to 4 inches further away than it needs to be underneath this pad, which is area of your leg that's unsupported. It doesn't make the movement terrible to do, but it does make it less than ideal. Now, if I'm being honest, I think that RitFit should fix this by just making this absolutely flat. It doesn't affect the functionality at all, and it makes it to where it still works as a leg extension and a prone leg curl. There are some other very good versions of this. For instance, the Elite FTS version that utilizes a similar design to this. I would think that if RitFit would just to adapt their design, they could put a better quality pad, they'd be able to save a little bit of money on where this hinge point is, and they would be able to just make this whole portion operate a little bit smoother. So seat pad aside being kind of a con of the unit, I want to take a little bit of time to talk about some of the pros of the unit. The first one I want to talk about is the resistance curve and the design of this and how it basically takes that resistance curve and makes it, in my opinion, one of the best plate-loaded versions out there. Normally, when you have a seated leg extension, leg curl, what you'll have is the lever for the leg, which has the roller on it, and it is directly connected to a swing arm that has a loading pin on it. It might just be a pin in the case of the Williams Strength unit, or it might be a separate pin in the case of the Bulletproof isolator. With this particular one, it actually uses a radial arm connected to a pulley that's going down to another arm, and instead of moving in the same axis, it actually operates on its own axis of rotation, and it's pulling from back here. The reason that the resistance curve is so ideal, in my opinion, for this piece of equipment is because the weight is never at a advantageous position. Normally with something like a stray dog goat, if you're to do a leg extension and you're set up in the bottom, the weight is just hanging in the bottom. So a 45-pound plate or a 3,000-pound plate still moves pretty easy on a vertically loaded unit, because this is set up to where it's basically lifting from just below parallel to just above parallel, and it's that same thing every time, basically that optimal loading range of a lever. You're feeling a very similar resistance on this for every single repetition. And as stated, the reason that works so well is because as this rotates, it actually pulls a cable that's connected down here at the bottom, which redirects up along the curve to another pulley that goes down and is connected to this arm, which can rotate independently. So as you can see, from just below parallel to just above parallel, you're getting a really consistent felt load on the movement itself. Another A+ design feature that I have really enjoyed so far has actually been the selection from a leg extension up to a leg curl. Now, the foot pad does rotate in and out, so when you're doing your movements, you generally want it on the top of the bar, but all that you have to do is put that up, flip over, and then you are already doing a super awesome prone leg curl. It's just that easy, and with this many starting positions, regardless of your anthropometry, you should be able to get an ideal strength curve based on you. Now, I'll be honest, one of my concerns was that I wouldn't actually be able to load this up heavy enough, because when you have weight that is on an arm such as this with a pivot point, you're not actually feeling the loaded weight. So for instance, if we were to have 90 pounds on this, although you have 90 pounds out here, and it might feel like 90 pounds at some point through the lift, in all reality, it's probably going to be a little bit less just because of the design of the equipment. The maximum rated load for this is 375 pounds, which concerned me a little bit, but not so much after I actually used it. Now, the 12.5-inch weight horn, which is chrome plated, and I will say that little flecks of chrome do pop off on it occasionally. I'm not saying all the time, but I just watched some pop off right there. It is a 2-inch weight horn, it's non-rotating, and it can take quite the amount of weight. So I'm going to go ahead and load up to 315 pounds, which is 60 pounds below the stated maximum. And I'm just going to give you guys an idea of what that looks like. It does come with a really crappy little squeeze clamp, but if I'm being honest, for something like this, it works just fine. 90, 135, 225, 315. So with 315 pounds on there, we have it to where I can still do the movement, but you can see that automatically. And I'm definitely not weak, but I'm definitely not strong. I'm kind of, I would say I'm on the stronger side of weak. But there's no way that I could rock out like a set of 15 of these. And this isn't even the maximum load. We can also see that even with me doing repetitions at 315 pounds, whew, feels good. That the unit, I mean, it moves a little bit. I weigh about 210 pounds. This weighs 315. So we're, you know, we have a load on this for sure, but it does really good, even with some heavier drops. The system maintains good tension. It feels good. Nothing's bending out of alignment. I gotta say that overall, I'm pretty impressed with the unit. So although it is on that pivot, it still does a really good job. Now, I no longer have my push-pull gauge. I honestly don't remember what happened to it. I need to buy another one. So I couldn't tell you what the actual felt load is at each weight. But what I'll tell you is that if you're at home and you're keeping track of your training in a training log, it really doesn't matter what the felt load is as long as you use the same piece of equipment from week to week. I would like to go back to a slight downside though. And again, it all comes back to this piece of junk pad in the backrest. Now, let's see if I can get it to make the noise. So there it is. It's kind of that plywood noise. Now, I don't know how thick the plywood is underneath this pad, but I noticed it when I was doing these 315 pound extensions. I can hear it crackling underneath the front. That's going to be some place where it wears down quicker than other places. And as a result, we're basically just going to be chewing back the support on that seat. It's a little bit unfortunate because I really do like the design, but one of the things I might try to do in the future is either source or make my own pad to go here to solve that problem for me. Now, transitioning to a prone leg curl is pretty simple. As I stated earlier, if you thought ahead, Curtis. Ooh, not quite. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take off some of the load because my hamstrings are not near this strong. And I'm gonna put it on the loading pin that's on the back side of the machine. But we're gonna chalk the weight down a bit. And I'm gonna show you how not only you can do prone leg curls, but you can also do them with the addition of bands. Now there are two posts down here to accommodate bands. I do have a band at the ready. And so you can go ahead and add that band in there just in case you want that little bit extra of accommodating resistance. The nice part about this is if you have miniature style bands already, the mini style bands hold up really well. They would do better if they were on the other side, but I didn't think that through when I was doing the review. And so here we are. As stated, adjust this leg roller up to the beginning of your range of motion. This is one step. You need to remember to flip this up and out of the way. And then you lay down, grab the rear handles. And that's that show. Now a quick message about these handles. There are two handles here next to you when you are doing seated leg extensions. There are also two handles down here underneath the back of the unit for when you're doing prone leg curls. Both of them are covered in kind of that cheapo foam that will eventually wear out, but it doesn't really ruin my opinion of it. It's just something that's going to wear out. They are held on using little end caps and spacers that utilize a hex head in order to hold them in place, so you can adjust them if you need to. And you could also potentially replace them with some other source of material if and when they do wear out. The leg roller is another piece I wanted to talk about as well. Now this leg roller, I like how it pivots on this, and all of the pivot points, by the way, on this use a bushing style design. So they're not just like metal on metal. It uses a bushing, so a bronze bushing, and every single one. That includes the backrest as it comes up. One thing I do wish is that they had some sort of mechanism so that the pad could rotate easier on the arm itself. Right now it does rotate, it's pretty tight, and I'm really being nitpicky here, but one of the fears I have is that the foam inside of this will basically have a memory worked into it, and as a result of that, you'll have kind of these impressions where your legs go, and when you work those impressions in, it tends to make the unit a little bit less comfortable to use. Now, I talk about making equipment choices pretty often on this channel. There's a couple things that I always recommend that you keep in mind when you're making those selections. Price is obviously one of them, and at $399, it's really hard to say no to something like this, but there's other things to consider. The most important piece of currency that your gym has, in my opinion, is going to be the floor space that it requires to set up. Now, the actual footprint of the unit is 42 inches wide by 51 inches long. However, you need to accommodate for the amount of length it takes to actually get the leg extension and the leg curl to operate effectively, as well as load the weight horn. As a result of that, when you're planning on floor space usage in your space, make sure that you have about 48 inches wide and about 48 inches wide and 66 inches long. I know that that seems like a lot. In some ways it really is, but you can get by doing certain things. For instance, mine has a platform that kind of ends and goes into space. I could store it in leg extension mode so that it doesn't take up as much space, and then I could always extend it out into prone leg curl mode when I need to perform prone leg curls. So as long as you have the space, I think the price tag is there. I think for most people, they would be hard pressed to find another piece of equipment that can compete with this as far as smoothness of operation, value for the money, and how well it's really just designed and how well it works. Overall, I really got to give a little bit of a hat tip and a thank you to RitFit. They either got incredibly lucky or they just nailed it when it came to the design on this one. So my bottom line, overall, I think this is a really good unit. Outside of a couple gripes that I personally have with the pad, which I do think will be the first thing to wear down, as well as maybe like some polish and fit and finish, which, if I'm being honest, I didn't even really address in this video. I think that this is a piece of equipment that is worth your money. I definitely think it's worth my money, and here it is in my gym, and I gotta say that I'm looking forward to the next couple months of training with it. But what questions do you have for the RitFit PLC01? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to go and check out the written version of this initial impressions review on my website. Also, if you go to my website, there's an affiliate link page. If you go there and use affiliate links when you do your shopping, it doesn't cost you anything, but it actually helps my channel out as far as funding, getting equipment in, such as the RitFit PLC01, and making sure that you guys can build the best gym for a budget. But that's been it for this video. I appreciate you guys that watch every week, and I'll see you next time.